Of all the techniques out there for understanding and assessing stock markets, sentiment analysis is one of the most popular ones. I call it most popular because I think it's complementary to every other technique out there. You have technical analysis, fundamental analysis, which is a very well defined word, but when people think of sentiment analysis, it's really not that well defined. However, when you ask anyone, how's the market today, they'll say आज market mandi thi, या today it was swing, or the sentiment is not good. While most people talk about market having emotions, there is not a very well defined structure as to measure it. So what I'm gonna do in this video is talk a lot about it and approach it from different lens, look at definitions, look at approaches. This is not a technical deep dive. In the next or maybe the video after that, I'll talk about how to build sentiments using Python, using some of unstructured data. That's probably a part of the conversation which people who are inclined to technology are more interested in, but this video is more about the understanding sentiment itself. And I'm going to also use an LLM to understand how can we play with sentiments. So watch this video till the very end. Also, if you're new to my channel, please subscribe, like and comment if you like my content. I talk a lot about technology, AI and stock markets and financial engineering, trying to converge all of them together and make it democratized for Indian markets. There's also an announcement that I want to make somewhere in this video, so stay tuned. Alright, so market sentiment analysis as defined on Investopedia is an indicator that is designed to represent how a group feels about the market or economy. Now this is a very large definition, right? You can have sentiment indicators that can show a bullish trend or a bearish trend, or you could have economic reports to tell you that. You could have tweets from people who could sway prices in crypto. You can have market sentiment over Twitter. You can have news articles. You can have government budget published out. You can have annual reports, quarterly filing reports, profit and loss statements. All of this is a lot of unstructured data and complementary and to the actual price data. And some people are of the opinion that price discounts all of that, but if that was the condition, people wouldn't have studied it. So there's a case to discuss this, and let's look at what could different indicators tell you. So there isn't a very well defined definition when people think of sentiment indicators. There's a lot of different kind of indicators that we can look at. For example, there's market sentiment indicators like VIX, which is a very well defined numerical index. So if you look at India VIX, you will get a very nice chart. You would get some sort of a volatility chart. This is probably COVID when it was crazy high, and then you have some periods of lows and high of VIX, and usually it's just somewhere below 20. That's what it is. So if the volatility is low, which means let's just not say what it means, it's open for interpretation. You could even think of 200-day moving average as a sentiment, because if the price is below 200 moving average, you could think that it's at a discount, it's trading above its long-term moving it's trading below its long-term moving average, or above it for that matter. So that's also a sentiment, right? But when most people talk about sentiment, I think the thought is from a behavioral finance perspective. So that's one idea that people want to study a lot. I think it's somewhere mentioned here, sentiment analysis indicators and behavioral finance, right? So that's the idea that we want to study more. So with that notion, let's approach a simple news article and we'll see how can we study this. So if this is a random article I just picked off Money Control, no affiliation, nothing like that. KFin Technologies Q4 target jumps 31% to ₹74 crore, dividend of 5.75 per share. Very positive article, right? So what I just did is copied all of this data, pasted it back into an LLM and asked it what it thinks. So when I asked it for a sentiment, it gave me the summary for it. However, what I'm interested in is getting a number, and my intent is very simple. I either want a multiplier or a dampener, right? If I'm predicting stock prices, I need numbers. So let's say if there's a news out there which could impact its long-term growth, or there's a quarterly report published which could impact with where the EPS has increased, so it could potentially impact the price itself. So that's what we want to study. So it could be in the form of a multiplier, it could be in the form of a dampener, or you could have a different combination of it tied to other features, etc. So what I asked is just generate a multiplier or a dampener that is percentage and can be used. So what it's giving me is, multiplier in the range of 5 to 10% could be appropriate, and similarly, somewhere about dampener, it's saying a dampener in the range of 2 to 5% could be considered. So it's giving some an assessment and reasoning behind it, and this is one very good way to arrive at sentiments. So what if I go back to my FinGPT conversation, which I'm still open, if people are interested in working on a project around that, please do ping me on the WhatsApp channel. That will be very, very helpful. So that's an idea around that you can use unstructured data, lot of it, and arrive at a numerical indicator which could help you gain some sense out of it. It could either be used as an independent value to assess some sort of a trend movement, or it can be used to just kind of understand and use it into your strategy as well if you want to. However, beware of the fact that a lot of data that you get is very, very a lot of it could be noise, so signal to noise ratio for this kind of a problem could be significantly high, which is what leads me to other part of this conversation. So there are organizations which do this, like for example in India, Ticker Tape has built a great tool called Market Mood Index, where they are trying to talk about what's the sentiment on the street today, and they have it back tested over a significantly long period of time. They have when with this market toppling, this market bottoming out, fear zone, greed zones, etc. So this is a good way of looking at a very long term market mood index or sentiment. But can you get more? Can you get probably more deeper? It turns out that you can. A lot of providers at some price would give you very well defined, refined summary of news, like daily. Like this is from Nasdaq data link. There are Indian providers as well which I think exist. I couldn't find it right now, but I'm pretty sure they exist. So daily news sentiment indicators for 49,000 plus stocks since 2013. So what this will give you is a numeric score of the bullishness, bearishness of the news, sentiment high low, like understanding the sentiment itself, the volume of the news itself, and a measure of the change in coverage, like something could be a fab or something could be a longer trend picking up. Like for instance, if governments are making a policy around a certain sector, there could be chatter around it, and it could translate to certain companies reacting to it. So you could study that long term. So this is a very, very well defined and interesting area. So that's what I really wanted to talk about into this video, and now leading into a separate part of the video, which is a key shameless plug. So a lot of you have requested in the past in the channel about structured learning opportunities, and can we get together and learn something from scratch. So this is an attempt. The link to this will be in the description. Please fill the form if you are interested. If you don't want to enroll in the course, so this is a course. Essentially what we are going to talk about is fundamentals of Python, working with core Python, how do you fetch market data, performing operations on data, understanding different ways to integrate with brokers, and finally some sort of technical analysis. This isn't a deep dive or something where I'm going to talk about options or something, backtesting strategies. So this is completely intended for anybody who wants to start out in this space, or is a trader, or is just looking to understand technology and see that. So this is like really 101, but completely from the lens of financial programming. We'll get into it from that perspective. So if you are interested in something like this, please hit the description, fill in the form. This is priced, there's cost associated to it, but if that's comfortable to you, then please do enroll in the course. This would sometime start first week of June. All right, coming back to the topic. So we were talking about market mood index and fear zones. Now, as it turns out, you can build sentiment analysis in Python for stock data. Now, one problem with this approach, and I want to leave with this caution, is you will find tons of different articles. This is using OpenAI, very similar to the FinGPT conversation. Again, I keep going back to it. There's probably some data being fed. There's probably some data being fed from Yahoo Finance and News, and then you are cleaning the data, feeding it back, or doing some prompting, etc., and essentially getting into some sort of analysis. Let's look at the final outcome. Okay. So there's some sort of, they're just assessing the data and not really using it. Now what I wanted to talk really about is the data that you feed into this is really important. So make sure that you apply some sort of human logic before selecting data. Like if you scrape off entirety of Twitter and just start to feed it into an LLM and expect a number, it's gonna really go haywire and give you really nasty results. So it would be a good idea to spend some time in assessing the data sources and then trying to build this kind of a system. Alright, so with that thought, I want to leave this conversation. If you have liked this conversation, please subscribe, fill in the form if you are interested in the course. Until next video, bye bye.